Hello everyone, welcome to What If Isay Was Trained by Female Godzilla, Ghidorah and Other Monsters movie. Before we start, please go support Jods89 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Isay is a male. Rescue. In the underworld, a trial was being held against a former Sekiryuutei Sekiryuutei for allegedly committing treason. Surziches. Then Sekiryuutei will be chained for treason, he said seriously. Isay. I swear I didn't do anything, he said worriedly. Azazel. Say whatever you want, but we have proof, he said seriously. Jury. Damn traitor, they shouted angrily. Rias. Why did I fall in love with someone like you? She said, annoying, just like the chestnut's ex-harem. Bekeno. Die, scum. Asia. God will have no mercy on someone like you, said the ex-nun angrily, followed by a blue-haired woman and a brunette. Kaneko. I'll give you what you deserve, said the albino angrily along with her older sister. Ali. I hope you die, traitor, he said angrily, as did his team. Michael. Okay, guards, take him away, he said seriously, as a group of angels and demons approached Isay, who was very scared. But in that, a huge earthquake shakes the entire area where they were, alerting them all. Azazel. What is that? He said, surprised. At that moment a roar is heard. Upon hearing this, everyone gets extremely scared and the entire area where they were explodes, destroying the jury and the area where they were releasing a large curtain of smoke. Everyone was very hurt by that, but at one point they saw the person responsible for what happened, seeing a huge lizard about 300 meters high. It looked like some kind of dinosaur. It had two muscular legs, a long tail, short but muscular arms, dorsal plates on its back, whose appearance resembled tree leaves, and finally its head, which looked like that of a Tyrannosaurus rex. Its eyes were tiny and blue, and it appreciates having a permanent smile on its face. Everyone would be scared by the enormous eyes of the creature, and even more so by its power, since it was at the level of the dragon gods. However, he was not alone, being accompanied by a beast of the same species but smaller. Being a lizard about 120 meters tall, it had a long tail, short arms with sharp claws, slightly thinner but strong legs, and its dorsal plates released a phosphorescent blue color. And finally, in the sky, a portal or rather a wormhole, opens from which comes out a huge golden dragon with 3 heads, about 130 meters high with golden scales, large wings, and from its eyes and mouths, you can see electricity coming out. The 3 creatures let out a powerful roar in unison, destroying much of the demonic territory, leaving some unconscious, including Sekiryuutei, who was carefully grabbed by the second beast as it entered the portal opened by the dragon. For its part, the first 300-meter beast makes its dorsal plates fill with electricity and then forms a ring of it around its mouth. Many, seeing this act, created magic circles as a shield to protect themselves from what was coming. And then the creature fires a huge beam of energy from its mouth, thin but very destructive, destroying much of the underworld in one shot. For its part, the beast begins to retreat along with the dragon through the same portal, but not before turning around and seeing the members of the supernatural factions. Beast. When they find out the truth about Isay and realize their mistake, don't come looking for him, damn you, said the beast with a very intimidating and thick voice, making the factions afraid apart from the power that it gave off. They are averted, he said as he disappeared into the doorway. Elsewhere on an island full of creatures of all sizes, the portal opens where the 3 creatures come out. Beast 2. Boss, what do we do now? Said the little lizard. Beast 3. Why do we rescue the boy? Said the golden dragon. Beast 1. We did it because he deserved a better future, and that's what I'll give him, he said seriously. This boy will be my descendant. In the mind of the beast. Me? Don't worry, Isay, nothing will happen to you if I'm here, I said, looking at the brown-haired boy. New family. After the rescue of the former Sekiryuutei, Isay found himself in a rather luxurious room while he slowly became aware of what happened. Memories of how everyone betrayed him came to his mind, as well as the trial he had, which was a fixed one since he couldn't defend himself in any way. But then he remembers those creatures that interrupted the trial, and now he was here. It was a mansion. Will it be the Gremory or Citri mansion? Isay. No, I don't think so. They betrayed me, he said sadly. But then the door opens showing a brown-haired woman wearing a yellow dress like a butterfly being in armor. Woman. I see you woke up, dear, she said with a quality smile that conveyed love and warmth. Come follow me, someone wants to see you, said the woman leaving the room. Isay, for his part, gets up and walks to the exit of the room, following the woman as she walked through the luxurious hallways of that mansion. After a while they arrive at a door where when it opens Isay sees a very attractive man with white hair and red eyes. Man. I see you're finally waking up, Isay, said the man, confusing the brown-haired man. Isay. How do you know my name? He said confused. Note. I'm going to call Subaru me because it's obvious that it's me and Subaru Sakamaki is my account logo and avatar. End of note. I know everything about you, and I know what happened to you with those traitors, he said, annoyed to remember them. Isay. But who are you? My name is Subaru Sakamaki, the one who saved you from judgment. Isay. But who was that monster? He said, remembering the creature. That beast was me, I said as I turned into a Godzillasaurus, but in miniature, scaring Isay. Isay. Thank you very much for the help, said Isay, relieved by what happened at the trial. You're welcome. Isay. But why did you do it? It's not obvious that what happened to you was very cowardly, and now I helped you to propose something to you. Isay. And what would it be? I want you to be my descendant and bearer of my power. You are worthy of receiving said power, he said, surprising Isay. Isay. I said confused. Yes, you said seriously. Isay. I don't know what to say. Isay, think about it carefully. You're someone who gave everything for them and they do that to you. Doesn't it bother you? Isay. Yes, it bothers me, he said annoyed. So what do you say? Isay. I accept, he said decisively. I like that. At that moment the door is opened by two women. The first is a woman with long black hair, a tail and dorsal plates like those of a lizard, as well as very revealing clothing. The second was a blonde woman with short hair, she had red eyes while in her hands, you could see some golden dragon heads and equally revealing clothing. Isay. Who are they? He said, blushing at the way they dress. They are the other two creatures of the meeting, I said, making Isay remember the other lizard as well as the dragon. Isay. They are them, he said, pointing at them. Yes it is. Well, let me introduce myself. I'm Godzilla, said the black-haired girl, but you can call me Zilla. And I am Queen Ghidorah, but just call me Ghidorah, said the blonde. Isay. Nice to meet you. Both. Equal. Okay, Isay, let me introduce you to the rest of the group, I said as four other people arrived in the room. Well, let me introduce myself. I'm Asura, but you can call me Mothra, said the same brown-haired woman who woke Isay up. I am Rodin the fire demon, said a man with dark skin and red hair. I am Kong, the king of mammals, said a man with dark skin and a muscular body. I'm Anguirus, the armored monster, said a brown-haired man with spiked gloves. Isay. They are all monsters, said Isay, looking at the group. Rodin. Yes, he is small. Anguirus. And there's still more to come. Kong. I hope you're ready for your training. Isay. Training of his successor, he said, pointing at me. Kong. Yes it is. Isay. Yes I am. Rodin. And tell me, boy, what will you do with the power? Isay. I don't know. Well, I'll tell you something we'll do. We'll destroy the factions. Isay. Seriously, he said, shocked. Yes, I said seriously. Kong. And tell me, are you joining us? Isay. I don't know. I had good times with them, but then they discarded me for someone supposedly better than me, he said, remembering both good and bad times. Isay. It's decided, he said seriously. Okay guys, let's train Isay separately. Call the rest of the team. Everyone? Yes sir. A while later. The group was in a deserted area of the island with some new members. The first was a girl with green hair and red tips like roses wearing a flower-style dress. The second was a woman with long black hair with red parts and a black jacket. And finally a boy with short black hair and a red blindfold dressed in black military-style clothing. You must be Isay, well let me introduce myself, said the green-haired girl. My name is Biolante, said the same girl. I am Gigan, said the black-haired boy. And I am Yuto, said the black-haired girl. Isay. A pleasure, he said with respect. Okay Isay, we'll all train you, and after that we'll create a plan against the factions and in that way free that world from a very heavy weight. Isay. By the way, they never told me why they would do that. Kong. It's simple, boy. Gigan. Factions kill or kidnap humans for sacred gears. Ghidorah. They only care about their military power, they don't care about their lives. Rodin. And it is our duty as guardians of the planet to protect and maintain the balance of life. Zilla. Besides, they are a danger. Thousands of humans will die for them and will be reincarnated as soldiers. Or tell me why your period hairs reincarnated in you. Isay. I thought it was because I was a good person, he said sadly upon learning the truth. Well, he didn't do it just because of your power. Biolante. Besides, that so-called dragon left you for someone supposedly better than you. Mothra. Well, at least those dragon gods didn't turn their backs on you, she said, making Isay remember that, and it was true. Isay. Okay, I accept to fight against the factions to free the world from their evil, he said determinedly. Here I will put a time skip of the end of the training because I can't think of anything, but I will just say that Isay has the power of Ghidorah and Godzilla, and I will tell what their forms are. Human form. Note. It can't be, he became a reggaeton singer, kill him. End of note XD. Godzilla form. Ghidorah form. Well now the powers. Atomic breath. Fireballs. Gravitatory rays. Supersonic wave. Flight. Hurricane force, winds. Regeneration. Well that would be all. This is pure and hard massacre, so the following chapters are only war against the factions. I hope you like it. The reason for my absence is due to university problems. I hope you forgive me. I seriously hate my computer mouse and the space bar. Look, I skipped more than 10 lines because the key was stuck. Well whatever. First attack. Okay guys, the attacks will be. Kong Rodan and Anguirus you will go against Asgard. All 3. Understood. Mothra and Muto you guys versus the Yokai faction in Kyoto. Both. Understood. Gigan and Biolante, you guys against the Egyptian faction. Both. Understood. Zilla and Ghidorah, you guys against Olympus. Both. Understood. And finally Isay and I against the Hindu faction. Isay. I'm ready, he said determinedly. Okay, let's get ready, but first, take this, I said, giving each of them some scrolls. Isay. What is that? Father said confused. Note. For the time that passed, Isay sees me as his father. End of note. It's simple, they are summoning spells that allow you to summon creatures of your choice for the attack. Isay. Any creature in that sense. Any fictional creature to make the attack easier. Isay. Okay I understand. Okay, we'll go tomorrow, so it would be better if you prepare, train, eat, sleep, do whatever you want, but the leaders of those factions will fall, leaving only the factions of Heaven, Hell, and Gregory. All. Understood. Everyone retires to do their things, some to train, others to eat and others to sleep. Isay. Father, I'm a little scared. Why Isay? Isay. The Hindu faction is very dangerous and Shiva is a very powerful being and you know it. Isay, I know, but you'd better prepare yourself mentally for what's coming. If they continue to exist, it will be a problem for the world order. Isay. Understood, father said as he leaves. Somewhere else. The faction leaders are seen in a very important meeting after the creature's attack in the trial. The leaders began to investigate what that was when they know the truth about Isay, so after a while they began to investigate further realizing the truth, and that is that the video of Isay being a spy was false, causing the supernatural world to enter a desperate situation to find him and ask for his help since Yamato the demon who gave the information was the same Rizavin who did not die as many believed and who now had the red dragon on his side and was much stronger. Azazel. Curse, said the fallen man angrily. Yasaka. We were idiots to believe in that bastard, she said dejectedly. Surziches. Since that day, Rias no longer leaves his room and spends his time crying, he said, sad to remember it. Michael. The best thing would be to find him and apologize for what happened and then make everything go back to how it was before. Everyone nods in affirmation. All the leaders retreat to their factions without knowing what awaited them. The next day. Mothra and Muto are seen looking at the Yokai faction in Kyoto. Mothra. Ready, she said, looking at her partner. Muto. She always said determined. Mothra opens the scroll as black animal-like creatures with a red and white mask emerge from it. Wolves, bears, eagles, elephants, boars, etc., all of them going against the Yokai faction. Elsewhere, a family of Yokai dogs was eating at the kitchen table, everything was normal until the door was knocked. Father. I wonder who it is, he said, going to open the door, but then he was no longer seen. The mother gets up and goes to see what happened, but then she screams, which makes her daughter get scared and goes to see what's happening. Girl. Mommy daddy, what's going on? Said the girl, peeking out, but then she sees a black wolf with a bone mask devour the remains of her parents. But the wolf noticed her presence and went to the girl who screamed, but then there was silence. The girl is then seen being devoured by the wolf. And it wasn't just in that house but in the whole faction. The only word that could describe his condition was terrifying. The streets are filled with blood, as well as the many corpses of the Yokai, as well as their heart-rending screams, where the sound of flesh being torn and dismembered can be heard. Rivers of blood were all over the place. But both women who started the fight arrived at the palace of the Yokai queen. Mothra didn't say but mutated if she was happy with what she saw. Both arrive at the queen's palace, where she had been informed of what had happened to her faction and was protected along with her daughter. For their part, the doors are destroyed by both cages who arrived where she was, killing every Yokai guard that stood in front of them along the way. Yasaka was hugging Kunu in an overprotective manner while they trembled in fear. Muto. Wow, look at that, it's the queen bitch, he said mockingly. Yasaka. What do you want from us? She said fearfully. Muto. No, nothing, we just want to do this world a favor by eliminating the pests that contaminated. Yasaka throws a blue fireball, but Mothra destroys it as if it were nothing. Yasaka, very determined, enters her kitsune state, now being a large fox with 9 tails. You was the powerful howl that the Yokai let out, launching herself against both women, determined to finish them off. But Muto just smiles as he goes into his kaiju state, being a huge insect with great power. Yasaka is scared by her power, but then receives a blow to the face, sending her flying. Yasaka stands up and then launches a blue flame from her mouth at the kaiju. But Muto just smiles as he hits the floor, creating a shock wave that knocks the fox back. For her part, Mothra changes to her kaiju form, now being a huge moth. The enormous moth launches multiple rays from its antennae, as well as from its wings at the Yokai queen. The moth divides into multiple small moths that surround the queen Yokai. In order to start attacking her with multiple energy beams that make her retreat wounded. But then she receives a blow from Muto that sends her to the floor, causing her to return to her previous state. Muto also does the same, returning to his human form and approaching her. Muto. Okay, let's start, he said, grabbing Yasaka's tails and then pulling them off one by one. Yasaka. Ai was the scream of the Yokai queen. Muto. Be lucky that the boss doesn't want to see you dead, but you will receive a punishment worse than death, he said while leaving Yasaka unconscious while grabbing her and placing her on his shoulder. For her part, Mothra does the same with Kunu, while both withdraw from the Yokai faction, leaving a horrible scene of rivers of blood, destroyed houses and mountains of corpses in the streets being devoured by the Grims. But after a while these disappear. Mothra. Subaru, the Yokai faction fell and we have the queen and the princess, he said through a communicator, warning me. Well done girls, I said with Isay by my side, going to India. Isay. Father, I have a question, why did they kidnap the foxes? He said confused. It's not obvious, son, why is your punishment? I said with a serious look. The witch Isay also smiles at this. Elsewhere, Biollante and Gigan are seen in front of the pyramids of the Egyptian gods, ready to fight. Biollante. I hope you're ready, she said seriously. Gigan. Oh girl, I was born prepared, he said with a sinister smile, seeing the Egyptian kingdom. The fall of Ra and a new fight against Shiva. In the Egyptian faction you could see the main gods like Osiris, Ra and Anubis in a meeting, as well as the other gods and their followers. Ra. The reason we're all here is to form a search team to find the former Sekiryuutei, the Egyptian sun god said. Osiris. I can't believe we fell into that trap by that bastard Rizvan, said the Egyptian fertility god angrily. Anubis. Either way, we can't just stand here while that bastard is still alive out there doing his thing, said the Egyptian god of death. Osiris. I recently spoke with Shiva and he is willing to help us since his kingdom and ours are very close. Brah. All help is needed to end this and finally obtain the peace we want. Before anyone could say anything, everything would start to shake as a very scared Egyptian soldier entered. Soldier. Mr. Ra, we are under attack, he said fearfully. The 3 Egyptian gods leave the main pyramid and then look up at the sky, seeing how everything darkened. Anubis. What's happening? He said confused. But then the earth opens up, revealing some very strange creatures. An army of hundreds, maybe even thousands of horrible arachnid-shaped monsters almost 2 meters long. Anubis. What the hell are those things? He said in amazement, since it seemed that their numbers were not decreasing, but rather they seemed to grow constantly. But they were not the only creatures, as 3 other types appeared, including a large firefly, a kind of scorpion, and a beetle hundreds of meters long. The 3 huge groups of creatures advance along with the millions of warrior creatures through the Egyptian kingdom, killing every soldier or inhabitant who gets in their way. The soldiers also killed the creatures, but it seemed endless since they practically kept appearing. It seemed that their numbers were endless, in fact, they seemed to multiply. Anubis summons multiple mummies that launch themselves against the creatures, but even so, the creatures devastated everything. Ra, very annoyed, throws fireballs, while Osiris throws powerful storm rays against the creatures, killing a large number, but even so, they did not stop. The 3 gods decide to fight in order to destroy the creatures, but then they notice a huge rose with multiple branches. The same enormous rose begins to release multiple spores which form large carnivorous plants that wipe out the entire Egyptian army. Not to mention that it also launches poisonous attacks which cause every warrior who breathes the air to fall to the ground from mortal wounds. Brah. Concentrate on that rose, he said annoyed while Osiris and Anubis joined their magic in a single point, forming a purple sphere like a sun with a logo like an Egyptian amulet in the middle of the same sphere. The three Egyptian gods throw the sphere at the rose, which begins to burn. While the gods see this with confidence, their smile disappears when they see that the rose begins to mutate and then becomes a strange creature, half reptile and half plant. But his terror increases even more when he sees a robot-like creature that instead of having hands had enormous blades. Both creatures launch themselves against the Egyptian gods, while the enormous robot grabs Anubis, who in a desperate movement begins to launch purple energy attacks against the enormous robot, whose attacks did nothing when they collided with him. Eigen. Useless, he said, and with a quick movement he cuts Anubis with his blades. Brah. No, said the sun god desperately, who would then receive a blow from the roots of the plant monster. Osiris goes to his rescue, but the same plant creature opens its mouth, throwing an enormous amount of acid against the god, while his skin and flesh fell off. The god screamed desperately, but it was too late, and the god fell dead from the acid. Brah. No, this shouldn't be happening. Everything should have ended and everything should have been peaceful. He said desperately, only to receive another blow from Biolante's roots that sent him flying again. Eigen takes advantage and stomps on the god's body, while he is barely conscious of what has happened. Biolante. It's not worth killing you, idiot, let's let the arachnids do the dirty work, he said as he retreated with Gigan, letting all the warrior arachnids approach the Egyptian god who was half dead. At that moment, the heart-rending cries of pain and pleas of Ra were the only thing that could be heard in that destroyed kingdom. Biolante. That was easy, and that guy who called himself God, said Biolante as she and Gigan retreat to the base. Gigan takes out his communicator as he starts calling me. Wow, you and Biolante are giants. You finished off the Egyptians. Gigan. Yes, apart from that, the main gods were killed. Well done Gigan, that's the end of the call. Isay. Father, what happens? Nothing Isay, just that another mythology is silent, now this one continues, I said, pointing to an enormous Indian-style palace with multiple figures of the 11-18 gods of India in each part of the palace, but the one that stood out the most was the most powerful of all, the god of destruction, Shiva. Isay. Oh yeah, you're the next to fall, Shiva, said Isay with an evil smile. Very soon son, very soon I said seriously. The Hindu faction. The black-haired man and the white-haired man just look at the temple in a cold way while releasing part of their power, seeing the palace of the god of destruction. Let's start, son, I said, seeing Isay who only nods in affirmation. It was the only thing I said and then pointed his index finger at the palace, to subsequently launch a blast of energy from it. The attack impacted with the palace, causing a part of it to explode at the same time that a little smoke began to come out of the impact zone. This put all its residents on alert. Shortly after, the god of destruction Shiva was seen leaving his castle with clear anger reflected on his face. He quickly realized the presence of the two intruders, appearing a few meters in front of them, looking at them with a serious face and clear anger. Shiva. Isay hi du el Sekiryuutei I ho molesto y serio. Isay. Oh no, it's Papa Smurf, he said mockingly, making Shiva angry. Shiva. For you, this is a game. You killed many people, and I will not allow that anymore, he said while releasing part of his true power. Isay just smiles as he transitions into his Godzillasaurus form, surprising Shiva with the brutal increase in power he obtained. Shiva. No, it's not possible, what the hell are you, he said with fear. Isay just smiles as he flicks his tail sending him flying into the remains of his temple. Isay. I am the end of factions, he said while staring at the Hindu god. Before Isay did anything, I stopped him while he then looked at me confused. Be careful, I said as we both dodged a magical attack from another Hindu god, revealing the gods Ganesha and Indra. Isay. Look at the four-armed elephant son, he said, annoying Ganesha. Isay, I'll take care of Shiva, you go against those two, I said, to which Isay looks at me, nodding, and then launches himself against both gods. While I just transitioned to my Godzilla Earth form waiting for Shiva. The god comes out of the rubble very annoyed and then turns his attention towards me. The god, very annoyed, launches himself at great speed against me, giving me a kick that does nothing to me, and then hits me with his tail, sending me crashing to the ground again. While Isay swept the floor with the gods who did not do any harm to him. Indra. Why doesn't he have any wounds? He said confused and then received a blow from Isay. Isay. "This is just a gift from my father," he said while preparing his atomic breath against the gods, who created a barrier as a shield to defend themselves from Isay's attack. However, when Isay releases his attack and the lightning hits the barrier, it is destroyed like a fine crystal, while both gods receive the attack full-on, creating a very strong explosion. With me, I only received blows from the god Shiva, who launched attacks with his fists, as well as elemental attacks of rock, fire and lightning that I received as if nothing happened. "Shiva. Why don't you fall?" said the god while creating several magic circles from which many fire attacks come out that fall against me. But I protected myself using a barrier with my electromagnetic power, while I took advantage and threw a tail wrapped in energy at the god, sending him flying. For his part, Isay was only playing with the gods until he saw how his reinforcements arrived, but Isay remained calm since his reinforcements arrived as well. After that, the ground opens up, from which some strange humanoid creatures emerge. Their skin was black, they had long tails that ended in a sharp stinger, but the most notable thing was that they had no eyes. But they were not the only type, but there were also some versions very similar to the Tyrannosaurus rex, as well as a larger version of the creatures, but it was larger with 4 arms with a long head with a shape very similar to a kind of crown, being accompanied by another group of very large creatures, but not as much as the main one. Isay. "The heavyweights have arrived," he said with a smile, while all the creatures give a war cry going against the Hindu army. With me, I had Shiva in a pitiful state. The god continued attacking me with magic circles, but each one was useless since my skin was far superior to his, and each attack he launched did nothing to me. But the god was determined to beat me, so he puts himself in the lotus flower position while he puts his hands together and his third eye opens to charge a powerful magic attack. "Shiva. Receive this. Third eye of destruction," said the god, throwing a powerful red ray at me. Which hits me full on, creating a huge explosion, raising a smoke screen that the god thought he won, but then he would receive a red attack from the mouth of my Godzilla form. I had thrown my red spiral breath at him and the god received it full on, falling to the ground. Shiva falls to the ground as he watches his soldiers die from the creatures as well as from Isay, who crushed or devoured them. I approach him and with his last strength he speaks to me. "Shiva. Pi mercy," he said with difficulty, afraid. For a long time he believed himself to be stronger than everyone, only being below the biblical god, just like the dragon gods. "I'm sorry trash, but in my head there is no mercy," I said to launch my atomic breath, again creating an explosion while his corpse fell as ashes. For my part, I just turned my gaze seeing Isay dismembering Indra while Ganesha was already dead. "Isay. Wow, how it went," he said with a smile. "I simply expected more, but well, it was a disappointment," I said as we left the kingdom of India, or well, what was left. The Hindu faction has fallen, the battlefield full of corpses, leaving the desolate field full of death and acid from the blood of the aliens, and in the center was the charred corpse of the god Shiva. Asgard and the 8 kingdoms fell. In Norse mythology, the king of Asgard, Odin, is seen sitting on his throne, while one of his soldiers gave him information about what recently happened with the other mythologies and the Yokai faction. Odin. I can see who would have thought that our former ally along with a new team would have caused so much chaos. But I think it's what we deserve after what we did to him, he said with resignation and annoyance. At that moment a soldier arrives with him, very alarmed. "Soldier. Odin-sama, we are under attack," said the soldier, very alarmed. The Norse god rises from his throne and goes to the balcony of his castle to then see a huge army of monsters with 3 gigantic creatures. The first was a kind of gorilla or ape of enormous size, while in its hands, it had an axe made of a giant bone with a kind of plate that shone in phosphorescent blue. The second creature was a huge red pterodactyl with rock-like skin, while from its wings, you can see a red energy like burning lava. It was on top of a volcano that was in a state of eruption, commanding a huge army of creatures at its side. The last one was like another more specific dinosaur, an ankylosaurus of enormous eyes with a spiked plate, a monster's face and a tail that ended in a huge club of spines. And the huge army of creatures came out of a huge portal in the sky. The Asgardians felt great terror when they heard multiple heart-rending roars of several or thousands of hungry beasts. From the portal would come out some strange creatures, there were hundreds or thousands of them, they had strange armor that seemed robotic, as well as insect wings with which they could fly throughout the kingdom of the Norse gods. The soldiers went on high alert, starting to attack the creatures, but their numbers did not decrease, but gradually increased as the battle progressed. Then 2 figures fall from the sky, one man with a hammer and the other with a sword, ready to help the Asgardian soldiers. The first was a robust man with a wolfskin covering his torso and shoulders. He had a belt along with Nordic-style pants. It was Tyr, the god of Nordic war, and in his hands, he carried the scarred sword capable of cutting anything, the infamous Tyrfing. The other was an equally robust man with red hair and a horn Viking helmet, while in his hands his hammer conducted electrical energy. That was Thor, the Norse god of thunder, and in his hands was the legendary hammer Mjolnir. And finally, a third figure arrived riding a beautiful eight-legged horse, while wearing an aura of imposing power, while in his hands, he carried the legendary spear that never fails. That was the father of all the god Odin, equipped with a legendary spear Gunnar and riding his beautiful and fast horse Sleipnir. Odin. But what kind of creatures are these? He said seriously and in a combat pose, just like his children with their respective weapons. Kong. That's none of your business, old man, said the serious gorilla while making a sign, and all the creatures launched themselves at them. But the attack didn't just happen in Asgard, no sir, but also in the other kingdoms. Alfheim and the home of the Light Elves, they used their element to attack all creatures, but they increased little by little, causing the elves to be surrounded and subsequently killed. At Tumhain and the home of the giants, they were later destroyed by the enormous variety of creatures being extinct. Muspelheim, the kingdom of fire and lava giants, was the first to be attacked, even the flaming sword giant Sutor was dead. Ifheim, the kingdom of the dead, did not have a single soul, and there were only piles and piles of corpses. Bonheim, the fertility gods and fairies, were charred by Rodin's lava flares. Midgard, the land of the humans who believed in the Norse gods, was one of the first to fall, along with an army of Valkyries and Einarjars, heroes who fell dead. Nilfheim and Indavalar, finally the dwarves and ice giants, were devoured by the creatures, leaving devoured corpses with teeth marks all over their bodies. Only the home of the Aesir remained, the kingdom of Asgard. In the fights, Kong launched slashes at Tyr, who dodged them with difficulty by throwing slashes with his sword, but each one was resisted by the ape skin. Kong. And you call yourself the god of war, how disappointing. The truth is, he said, throwing a slash with his axe that Tyr barely blocks. Tyr therefore steps back while performing his final cut technique, with which he cuts whatever the Yggdrasil fallen sword consists of, accumulating power in his sword and launching a brutal cut. But Kong is not far behind, launching a slash of his axe with the energy of the hollow earth accumulated in the blade, another brutal attack. Both launch their cuts, but the strength of the ape is superior, and with it destroys the sword of the god and then gives it a brutal cut, splitting it in half. Elsewhere, Thor threw lightning bolts from his hammer at Anguirus, who threw energy beams counterattacking the Norseman's lightning bolts. Hitting him more than once while in spherical mode with his spiked shell as if it were a hammer. Thor, very annoyed, accumulates electrical power in his hammer and then throws it at his opponent, causing him to return and then deliver a crushing blow using centrifugal force in his favor. While Anguirus throws himself into his shell. Thor's technique, the Gerot, a crushing electric blow against Anguirus's shell where light came out from the struggle of both techniques when they collided. Where Thor is seen crushed as well as his hammer destroyed. Finally there was Rodin against Odin, who himself threw lightning, fireballs and even spheres of black magic, taking life from all around him in the process. But Rodin dodged them and threw lava bombs, making Odin retreat. Odin. Damn, how is this possible? He said, annoyed and hurt. Rodin. Let's finish this, old man, he said, gathering power in his mouth and then charging his deadly aurora ray against the god. For his part, Odin charges his spear with the last of his magical power in a final attack, his shot that never misses, the punishment of the 9 realms, with which he could destroy the other 8 kingdoms. But Odin's spear would never arrive because Rodin's fire simply stopped its advance, causing the god to take damage, and not Rodin. For this reason, Odin falls to his knees, very tired, while they slowly return to his human form as they move away from the area. But Odin, in a last attempt, throws his spear with everything he had, only for it to be stopped by Rodin, who in a quick movement returns it with twice the force. Causing the Nordic to be pierced by his own weapon in his heart and then impaled on the wall of one of the walls of the extinct Asgard. Odin could only slowly lose his life as the 3 cages retreat, while the remaining monsters devour his body, as well as that of his children and inhabitants. Norse mythology is silent and only Greek mythology is missing. The end of Olympus. On Mount Olympus, a meeting of the most important gods was held to discuss the constant attacks and the fall of the Egyptian faction. Since they did not know about the fall of Asgard or the Hindu faction. We are gathered to talk about what happened with the other mythologies. The king of Olympus, Zeus, the god of lightning, spoke seriously. I was disappointed by what the former Sekiryuutei did. The sea god Poseidon spoke very seriously. But it was also the fault of those bastards from the 3 supernatural factions, said the god of Tartarus, Hades. Zeus. The best thing would be to gather the others to create an attack, he said seriously. Poseidon. Let's do it, let's call Apollo, Hercules and Ares, since of all the Olympians, they're at our level, he said seriously. Hades. If it is the best and could not finish due to a loud bang that shook much of Olympus. The three gods head to the area where the noise originated, seeing the same two creatures that stopped Haidu Isay's trial. The 120-meter lizard and the 130-meter three-headed dragon. Zeus. It can't be, they are those creatures, he said seriously. Hades. Damn, so we're their next target, he said angrily. Poseidon. Let's take advantage of the fact that the greatest is not here and finish them off, he said seriously while increasing his power. The huge lizard takes out 3 heads from his hand, but they were not normal. They were the heads of the gods Apollo, Hercules, and Ares, surprising the 3 brothers. But how then? Let's retreat before the crash. Flashback. The sun god Apollo is seen with his brothers Ares and Hercules. Apollo. Well, that's my plan to recover the Sekiryuutei, said the sun god. It seems fine to me, the god of war Ares speaks. We'd better get ready, said Olympic champion Hercules. But then the same 2 creatures appear, making both gods serious about their presence. Apollo takes out his bow and starts shooting flaming arrows, but they do nothing to the creatures. Ares and Hercules jump while grabbing their weapons tightly, being a spear and a mace, and using their enormous strength, the gods hit each creature, but they are of little use. A huge dragon raises its wings while a lot of electricity comes out of them and heads towards the sky, forming a very strong electrical storm. The hole opens in the sky, and a huge lightning bolt falls from it, hitting the 3 gods, leaving them badly injured. While the other creature takes advantage and charges its own breath and then shoots it from its mouth, causing the gods to be killed. But before they turn to dust, the 3-headed dragon cuts off each of their heads. Ghidorah. This will work against that bastard, he said with a deranged smile. End of flashback. Zeus was very upset about the death of his children as he expels a lot of power while loading power into his hand. Zeus throws multiple rays with all his power, Poseidon creates several blades of water and throws them, while Hades throws multiple balls of hellfire at the 2 creatures. The attacks collide, creating a small explosion, raising a smokescreen, but when it dissipates, the 2 creatures are seen with small wounds that were regenerating, as if nothing had happened to them in that attack. Zeus. But he didn't do anything to them, he said, shocked. The 3-headed dragon raises its heads while charging power in its mouths, and then launches powerful rays from them. The 3 gods create a barrier with magic circles, but they are destroyed like a fine crystal by the attack, receiving the rays directly, creating a very strong explosion. When everything calms down, you see the 3 gods very injured while they could barely get up. For its part, the enormous lizard begins to expel a lot of heat while its entire body ignites in thermal nuclear energy. It conducts all the heat to its mouth while it glows in a very strong tone preparing to attack. The 3 brothers took cover, but it was too late. The enormous creature launched a powerful colored ray at the gods, charring them. Greek mythology has fallen. Zilla. Okay, let's go back to the base. It seems that everyone has already finished their objectives, she said seriously. Ghidorah. Okay, I admit it was a little fun, but we better get back, she said as they both entered a portal, returning to the base. In that, both of them return to their human form while they settle into the base. I see you're back girls, I said arriving at the room with Isay. Ghidorah. Honey, he said, happy to see me as he stood up and then hugged me. Haha, calm down, I'm fine, I said while reciprocating the hug. Ghidorah. I don't care, he said while still in the hug. Isay. It seems that he loves you, father said with a smile, watching the scene. Zilla. You don't even have to say it, I've never seen her so happy. Okay, now that the mythologies are gone, let's go for the big ones, and that's the dragon gods. If we finish them off, there won't be any problems. I said seriously, to which everyone nods in affirmation. The Chaos Brigade. We would all meet to talk about the next objective. Office and Great Red. Okay, let's hope this works, I said seriously, to which everyone would also be like that. We open a portal where we exit into the dimensional rift, the home of both dragon gods. In that I release part of my power making both gods arrive at the area where we were. Red. Who are you and what are you doing here? He said seriously. Isay. You don't know me anymore, Red, he said, feigning sadness. Office. Wait, Isay, is it really you? She said, surprised to see him alive. Isay. Himself in person. Red. I thought those bastards had murdered you, he said, remembering how he was framed. Isay. In fact, that was going to be the case if it weren't for my father, he said, pointing at me. Thank you very much, Isay. Now you may wonder what we are doing here and the answer is simple. I propose 2 things. You choose. 1. Unite to end the factions. 2. Or do nothing for our next hit. Red. I don't know if I should join you, boy. I know that what happened to Isay was very bad, but they also destroy the order of the world with each dead god, and I didn't finish because I interrupted it. Before you continue talking, do you know something? In our Titan state, we make the living cells of organisms, whether plants or animals, increase radically, causing them to multiply thousands of times faster. I said, surprising the dragon. Office. And what will you do now, he said, seeing me. We will attack the Chaos Brigade, getting rid of them forever, I said seriously. Office. You know those bastards have the Red Emperor dragon, she said seriously. I know, and that stupid lizard will fall too, I said seriously. Isay. So do they help us or not? Office. Sorry, we can't help you. We must take care of stability, even though it will help us a lot with you. We can't intervene. We must help the world from what's happening. Red. In Africa, the places of worship of the Egyptian gods are in ruins. Crops and things are dead. In the Scandinavian islands that worship the Norse gods, they are experiencing a hellish winter. Office. In Greece, India, parts of China and Japan are the same. He said what we would all understand, what he wanted to get at. Okay, then we'll take care of the rest, I said seriously as the group left, but in that office. Isay, wait, said the dragon, stopping her advance, standing face to face with the black-haired man. Office. Please come back healthy, she said worriedly. Isay. Don't worry, I'll come back and save this world from the evil it has in the supernatural, he said with a smile, making the dragon blush. Isay didn't say anything else, just entered the portal leaving the dragon gods. Office. I will wait for your return, my little dragon, he said with a warm feeling in his chest. Elsewhere, a base would be seen near a destroyed city of the underworld where Rizvan, Kakabiel, Shalba, Crusory, Euclid and Kateria are seen gathered talking about the attacks on the supernatural factions, objected by their former rival and enemy, the former Sekiryuutei. Rizvan. That damn human did all this. I said seriously, as he released some of his power. Loki. Now that this is so, I couldn't get revenge on Odin because he killed him, he said angrily. Shalba. Damn you, he said, banging on the table. Kateria. We have to calm down and take advantage of this and attack the underworld now that it is weak. Crusory. You're right, we have to do it as soon as possible. Before anyone could say anything, the entire base was destroyed by an enormous power equal to that of the dragon gods. Everyone leaves what was left of the base seeing some enormous creatures, whether insects, dinosaurs, mammals, etc. Rizvan. What the hell did he say, shocked, while trembling like his companions because of that. The creatures charge up energy attacks, while the god and fallen demons charge up their attacks to defend themselves. Rizvan, Shalba, Crusory, Kateria and Euclid charge magic circles with great demonic power. Bakabiel creates several spears of light with all his power, and Loki creates Asgardian magic circles ready to destroy the creatures. Red spiral breath, I said, shooting a red ray from my mouth. Ghidorah. Gravitatory rays, he said while rays came out of his 3 heads. Zilla. Atomic breath, said, launching a sky blue ray. Broden. Aurora lightning, said, shooting an orange ray from his mouth. Angerous. Sonic roar, said while launching a powerful scream into the air that seemed like a supersonic projectile. Kong. Skull lightning, said while raising his hands and then launching a ray from them. Note. If you're wondering why Kong does that, it's because I got him from the 1962 movie Godzilla vs. King Kong. He can do that, and I believe the name. End of note. Mothra. Cross heat laser, she said as 3 multicolored lasers came out of her forehead. Mute. Electromagnetic burst, he said as he stomped on the ground, sending a shock wave underneath him. Eigen. Penetrating laser, he said as multiple lasers came out of his hands. Ilante. Acid, he said as he opened his mouth, letting out a lot of acid, forming multiple waves of it. Isay. Gravitatory breath, said while combining nuclear power with electrical power, launching rays from his 3 Ghidorah heads, and the one in the center let out a celestial ray. The attacks would merge to form one as it destroyed the Chaos Brigade members' pathetic attempt to stay alive. Everyone takes it full force as they fall to the floor half dead because of it. At that I transform while I walk to a glass tube they had, which I destroy, taking out an emerald green sphere. You will also suffer, supposedly the Red Emperor dragon, I said seriously, seeing Drake's soul. A little while later you see our base, and in a room you see a girl with red hair and green eyes. That girl was not always a woman, but was the ancient red celestial dragon Drake, now a woman. Drake. But what happened to me? Why does my voice sound like that? Why is my body like that? She said desperately while looking at her body. You finally wake up, lizard, I said seriously as I appeared in the room. Drake. Who are you and what did you do to me? She said desperately and angrily. Isay. I'll say that, he said, appearing in the room. Isay. It took a long time, don't you think? Drake said seriously. Drake. Partner said, desperate to see him. What are you doing here? She said, very scared. Isay. You could have helped me in the trial and you didn't. You preferred a stupid title to helping me, he said, slapping her. Greg. Forgive me, he said crying. A pardon won't solve anything now that your punishment has begun, I said as we took her to the base's dungeons. Upon arrival, the former members of the Chaos Brigade are seen, except for Kateria, turned into women, being raped by some ogres while crying for mercy. Greg. No, no, what will they do to me? She said, scared. This is your punishment, I said, giving it to the ogres while they also had fun with it. Isay. There are only 3 factions left, he told me as we walked out of the room. Yes, son, everything will be over, I said seriously. The fall of the factions. The supernatural world and the balance were about to collapse. The 3 factions dug their own grave because of a mistake, being carried away by a pretty face. The one they considered their hero was no longer their hero, but was now their destroyer. Their greatest enemy fell and only they remained alive. After the mythologies fell, they found out what happened and went on high alert. They were desperate, no one left their homes for fear. While that was happening in the Gremory mansion, a meeting of the Mao Lucifer was taking place along with the leader of the fallen and his cadres, as well as the leader of heaven with the archangels. Surziches. We are undoubtedly in the worst situation of the factions, he said seriously, and everyone nods. Michael. And the worst thing is that everything that's happening is because of us, he said sadly. Azazel. I curse the day we let ourselves be fooled by that bastard, he said annoyed but was able to hide it thanks to his nerves. Michael. What we'll do now is go to our factions and prepare for whatever's going to happen, he said seriously. But then a guard arrives leaving a message from Isay. The message said that he wanted all members of the 3 factions to meet at one point. The distrustful leaders would accept, determined to end this mistake that they themselves committed. Each one going to their factions to prepare for what was coming. A little while later in a vast desert, the leaders and high-ranking members of the 3 major factions are seen gathered in a single spot with their troops ready for what was about to begin. In front of them a portal opens where we all come out while in front were Isay and I. He was calm, but Isay was very serious and upset to see them again. Azazel. Oh, hello, Isay tried to say it in a friendly tone, but the black-haired man looked at him with hatred. Surziches. Wait, seriously, let's stop this, he said desperately. Michael. Isay, wait, seriously, we regret our mistake, but please stop this madness. The people you have killed, look, Yamato was killed by your hands, proving that he was that bastard Rizavan. The angel tried to excuse himself without any success. Isay. Oh, you caused this, and now nothing will stop it, he said while taking out some swords with chains, they were the swords of chaos. The same ones on their edge are seen to be wrapped in flames, while Isay grabs them tightly. For my part, I took out an axe that emitted an icy aura, as well as having different runic drawings in the ancient Nordic style in its design. It was the Leviathan's axe. Zilla, for his part, also takes out a weapon, these being strange steel gauntlets in the shape of a roaring lion, which were the Nemean cestus. And finally Ghidorah takes out a strange sword with a golden color on its hilt and edge, while a very strange blue fire comes out of it. It was the blade of Olympus. I told them not to try anything, and instead of listening to me they decided to come here. They couldn't live with their failure and regret, and that's where it brought them to where we were. I said seriously with the axe ready while the others prepare. Azazel. Wait, can we talk to finish this? The fallen one tried to excuse himself, but I interrupted him. Oh shit, this is over now. I take a breath and then scream. Charge, I said as we all launched ourselves against the army of the factions that also did the same, thus starting a war. With me I was fighting against a group of angels and fallen angels who were attacking me with their spears of light, but I made my axe cover itself with a sky blue energy while the spears froze in the air. Heavy runic. Blessing of ice. I said as my weapon was covered in ice while I was hitting the angels and fallen angels non-stop and they were cut in half by the attacks. But in doing so he dodged a spear of light from Azazel who had his armor ready. Azazel. You were the one who put Isay in the dark. Now you'll pay me for it. Said the fallen man angrily while creating another spear of light. I make my axe cover with ice while I grab it with one hand and then prepare to throw it. Light runic. Ter's revenge. I said while throwing the axe at Azazel who blocks it with his spear, but it begins to break as the axe spun in the air like a blade. At that I retrieve the axe while charging another attack with the same Azazel for his part charges another spear of light and launches himself at me with a stab, but I raised the axe while I had power charged in them. Heavy runic. Breath of Thamur. I said while I had the axe raised and around me multiple ice attacks came out like a tornado serving as a barrier against the fallen. Azazel receives multiple ice attacks while his armor cracks and the fallen falls to the ground while I charge my axe while launching multiple horizontal ice slashes that damage Azazel. Light runic. Utgard strike. I said well the fallen man received each blow, becoming very injured, but then he charged another attack with which he hit the ground. Heavy runic. River of blades. I said as I slashed the floor with my axe while ice blades flew out at Azazel who managed to dodge them by flying. But I knew he would do that so I charged my axe again and that's when I said. Heavy runic. Cloth Azazel. I said throwing 3 slashes upwards hitting Azazel who takes a lot of damage falling to the ground while bleeding a lot. Azazel. Wait, can we talk about this? He said desperately as I approached him with the axe in hand. There's nothing to say, Fallen disgusting said while I gripped my axe tightly. Azazel. No, the fallen man screamed while I moved and cut him with the axe, cutting off his head, thus finishing off the fallen man, leaving his corpse on the floor. At that I turn around seeing Barakiel off guard so I attack him from behind. Prepare yourself because you will suffer the same thing that Isay was going to suffer, I said seriously while I saw him. Elsewhere, Zilla was sending fallen demons and angels flying with Acestus, as if they were nothing. Zilla. How weak, he said as he crushed a demon's head with ease. Sekiryuutei then stands in front of her. Zilla. Wow, finally something entertaining, he said while the black-haired man put on his armor ready for the fight. The demon lunges at her, throwing a punch that she easily stops, then delivers one that breaks the demon's ribs. Sekiryuutei throws punches that she easily dodges and then delivers a double blow to the chest that makes the demon fall to the ground. Then she gets on top of him while a golden aura covers her. Zilla. You're like the rest, a disappointment, he said, charging his fist with power. Sekiryuutei. Wait no, said the scared one, but it was too late. She carries 2 powers in one. The tremble of Atlas plus the roar of Nemea. Every blow he gave could be seen the head of a roaring lion, while, by force, enormous flaming rocks similar to meteorites came out of the ground, thus ending the lives of several soldiers. Zilla just gets up while looking elsewhere seeing many soldiers going against her, so she throws herself at them. On the other hand, Ghidorah was hitting Akeno's face with electricity, while the face of the fallen one was disfigured while crying. But the dragon, tired of her cries, turns her to ashes with her electricity, thus finishing her off. And that the dragon dodges an attack from Rossweisse and Rias who looked at her with hatred. Both. Damn they said launching magical attacks against the dragon. But Ghidorah just smiles as he dodges the attacks and then jumps and dives against them, slamming his sword into the ground, causing a huge pillar of blue fire to form around him, charring both women. But Isay, he grabbed the swords from the chains while spinning around while attacking with the edge of the swords, as if it were a flaming tornado, finishing off several soldiers. But in doing so he dodges an attack of destruction from Sekiryuutei who was very upset. Isay. It's time for revenge, don't you believe it? Disgusting Siskin said with his swords ready. Sekiryuutei. Last warning, finish this. Oh, I'll be forced to finish you off. He said, releasing all his power. Isay just smiles as he jumps in the air, plummeting with his swords on fire. Magic. Fire varies. He said and then gave the crushing blow against a demon, causing great damage. Isay launches himself at Sekiryuutei using his swords as whips, attacking at long distances with flaming sword slashes until he comes up with something. Stopping his attack, Sekiryuutei takes advantage to then launch himself against Isay with a sword of power of destruction against Isay, who was waiting for him and then say. Magic. Army of Sparta. He said as he was surrounded by spirits of Spartans with flaming spears and shields forming a shell around Isay, causing the super demon to receive more than one stab. Sekiryuutei retreats, but Isay launches multiple slashes at him without stopping, causing the demon to be very injured. Isay does not stay still, and from his body flames come out while his fists and swords fill with flames, due to his anger at the demon. Spartan wrath. With this, Isay launches stronger blows and more lethal cuts, causing the super demon to lose a lot of blood and also his wounds to heal quickly, thanks to the fire of the swords. But then Isay throws another uppercut while screaming. Heavy runic. Falling meteor. He said while giving a crushing blow with both swords to the red-haired man while around him, huge balls of fire fell like meteorites, killing several soldiers, as well as wounding the demon. After a while, the red-haired man is seen on the ground half dead, while Isay puts his foot on the demon's head, who looks at him with hatred. Sekiryuutei. You will forget about this, he said with hatred towards the black-haired man, but Isay didn't care, and with a stomp he crushed his head, killing him instantly. Isay. I hope you rot in hell, imbecile, he said with hatred. After a while. The battlefield is seen full of corpses of the 3 factions, and their leaders were dead. Their heads were cut off except for Sekiryuutei's and were placed on stakes at the highest point, giving a gruesome sight. Also in the same was Isay's ex-harem. There was only one left alive, and that was Vali Lucifer who was very weak from the fight, standing in front of Isay who looked at him with hatred. Isay puts away his swords and takes out another weapon, some claws with purple energy on their blades. They were Hades' claws. Ollie. Isay, wait, don't do something crazy, you know we are friends, right? Isay. Friends are those who do not turn their backs on others, and you turned your back on me a long time ago, he said angrily. Ollie. I got carried away by Yamato and was interrupted by a blow from Isay. Isay. I'd better finish you off right away, he said, while charging power into his claws. Magic. Soul summoning Hades. He said as a giant hand comes out of the ground grabbing Volley, taking him to his personal hell. After that, he arrives where another survivor was, and that was Saji Genshiru, who also sends him to his personal hell. Isay. Finally everything ended, he said, seeing the war zone. Yes, son, everything is over, I said, seeing the corpses on the battlefield. Decent end of the series. It's been a while since everything that happened. Isay fulfilled his revenge against the factions, as well as against Rizovin and those who called themselves his friends. Now he lived in peace and had everything. From a father who loves him, true friends and the love of his life, to the only person who never abandoned him, the Dragon of Infinity, Office Ouroboros. For a long time, Isay visited Office to ask her out on dates, and the dragon always accepted his invitations. From going out to eat, video games, the fair, the beach and other places, she always accepted everything with a smile. Because even though it may not seem like it, she finally got the feeling she so wanted to have. For my part, my main objective upon coming to this world to help it was successfully completed, but now that there is no objective or goal to accomplish, I decided to move forward with my path and my life. Supporting the good humans and punishing the evil ones was my new goal. And in the process, get rid of every demon, fallen, surviving angel, and make sure that no one else suffers because of supernatural beings. And with my team that would work. After a while we present ourselves to the human world as saviors, demonstrating our power and astonishing everyone with it. On that day I said that I would put an end to the bad, and I would not stop until I accomplished it, and those were not empty words but true. We slowly wiped out every corrupt politician, and in our Titan ways we rebuilt destroyed forests, valleys and mountains, now places full of life. And with that we direct humanity on the right path. There were problems, yes, there were, but even so, everything changes, it's a shame. After a while. Humans put aside their differences as well as wars. Zilla took nuclear weapons as if it were nothing, since they were damaging the environment, and with them no one would suffer anymore. For my part, we created a semi-utopia with minimal crime, hunger and poverty, and I say almost because there were still bad people. Because as we all know there must be a yin and yang, a balance between good and evil, but the fights did not go beyond stupid things like fights over bets and such. But now let's go with Isay. In the mansion, more specifically, in one of the rooms, the black-haired man is seen in a bed along with an adult black-haired woman, since Office took a more adult form. They were both asleep hugging each other until they hear a baby crying. They get up and go to a room where they see a baby crying in a crib. The witch Office lovingly carries her while giving her milk, causing the baby to fall asleep a little more while she was with her teddy bear by her side, giving a very tender scene. Note. Imagine if it's a film noir, I couldn't find anything better. End of note. After leaving their daughter in the crib, both adults leave the area, going to the outskirts of the mansion, happily seeing how everyone lived without fear of crime. Isay. When you fight for what you should, you get it, don't you believe it, darling? He said, looking at the black-haired girl. Office. Yes, that's right, he said with a smile, and then kissed the black-haired man. Somewhere else. I would be seen on top of a building watching the dawn of a new day on the horizon. If you fight for what you want, you will have it. The world can be yours only if you have a high mentality and the support of your loved ones. Don't stay behind just because everyone turns their back on you. Stand up and show what you can do. And even if no one trusts you, you keep going. You can and you always will. My fight is not over, and it will not stop until we are all seen as equals, I said as I left the building. End of the story. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.